Welcome world-famous victim rights attorney representing one of Governor Cuomo's accusers, Gloria Allred. Gloria, you're the right person for this show right now. This news has been breaking all afternoon. Welcome to the show. But before you weigh in, I have to play with Governor Cuomo, what he came out with about an hour after the accusations, or Letitia James came out and said that they were credible. This is what Cuomo had to say. Here's a soundbite.
And for those who are using this moment to score political points or seek publicity or personal gain, I say they actually discredit the legitimate sexual harassment victims that the law was designed to protect.
That's some serious accusations pointing at, I'm guessing, the victims themselves, you, the attorneys, and maybe even Letitia James. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, no one is above the law. Not the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, not Governor Cuomo either. It's very important that the New York Attorney General made the findings that she did in a very lengthy and detailed report that also included my client, Sherry Ville, who is one of the victims of Governor Cuomo. And I think it's important that every person have a workplace free of sexual harassment, free of the hostility and the toxic nature of sexual harassment, which interferes with their right to enjoy equal employment opportunity. It places women in a no-win situation. Do they say yes? Do they say no? Either way, they lose. My client was a constituent of Governor Cuomo. She was very brave to come forward. And we have shown photos of the governor kissing her without her consent, grabbing her face, drawing her face to him. Governor has to stop giving excuses, stop attacking any victim, stop attacking the attorney general, stop attacking private lawyers like me who represent sexual harassment victims. We are the leading sexual harassment law firm in the United States. We won a verdict before a jury, $58,250,000 for one victim of sexual harassment by a billionaire. And so we understand sexual harassment law. And I might add, the governor is an attorney. He, like me, is required to take a class in sexual harassment in order for us to fulfill our bar requirements. And if he did take it, apparently he didn't learn from it. And now he's going to get a teaching moment, and I'm sure it's one that he will never forget.
No doubt, no doubt.
To resign.
No, well, resign, be impeached, one or the other seems to be, coming for the governor. But Gloria, let's stay on some of the victims. Your victim, your accuser says that he did those things. Another one, Charlotte Bennett, that we had the picture of, she was in the far upper left-hand corner. The Attorney General outlined some of the things that she's accusing Cuomo of. She's 25 years old. She says that he asked her, are you against dating older men? I asked her about her sex life. I mean, is this not textbook sexual harassment? What will be his defense if it does go further? And by the way, while we're on it, will it go further?
I think that's a good question. Will it go further? And I think it's important that the New York Assembly Impeachment Committee decide if it will go further. We know that their investigators have also reached out to all of the alleged victims. And so they'll give their report to the Assembly Committee, and then it'll be for the Assembly Committee to decide if an impeachment hearing is necessary. Of course, it won't be necessary if the governor resigns, but if he chooses not to, stand his ground and just attack everyone else, try to change the subject, well, then the New York Assembly Committee is going to have a tough decision to make. And I understand they're meeting even now as we speak.
So we're all watching this happen, and we're not lawyers, but we're watching what are the next steps. So you're right, political. So there's three kind of lanes politically, and I think we're probably all in agreement that politically he's probably shot. He's not going to run for president. He'd probably not last the rest of his term as governor. Then there's the other two lanes. Will there be criminal prosecution? I hear Albany is already looking into possibly investigating him criminally. And then the third lane being civilly. Will your client go after him civilly, and will some of the other victims, some of the other 11 or others coming forward?
Well, let's talk about the criminal first. Of course, that's the toughest one because that would need proof of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, the highest burden of proof in the law. And whether or not a prosecutor thinks that he or she could prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt on the facts that are alleged, it is uncertain at this time. Obviously, if anyone touches anyone else without their consent, that is a battery. And a battery could be a criminal act, especially if it's a sexual battery. And so we'll have to wait and see what happens on that. In reference to the civil cases that you asked about, it may be that some of the alleged victims will file civil lawsuits. That only requires a very low burden of proof, what's called a preponderance of the evidence, which is a lot less, Eric, than proof beyond a reasonable doubt. In other words, less evidence is required to prove a case in a civil lawsuit because there you're seeking damages, an amount of money to compensate the victim for what she has suffered, pain and suffering, maybe medical bills, maybe lost wages. And so we'll have to wait and see on that, whether any of the victims plan to do that. At this time, Sherryville has no plans to do that. We'll have to see if anything changes.
So during this, I guess, the defense, it was highly produced, let's call it that. It wasn't a live press conference where he was just delivering his thoughts. Governor Cuomo this afternoon came out with something that's pre-produced. It was on tape. And one of the things that struck me is he explains what happened in some sort of cultural phenomenon. I'm Italian. This is what we do. I'm Italian. I can tell you unequivocally that's not what we do. But take a listen to Cuomo explaining this as some sort of cultural touching. Listen.
I've been making the same gesture in public all my life. I actually learned it from my mother and from my father. It is meant to convey warmth, nothing more.
So, is that any defense in a court of law, Gloria? Even though I sexually harass someone, it's what we do, we're Italians.
No, it's not. And by the way, my client, Sherryville, whose photo you also did just show, is also Italian. And so is her family. And she said that the governor said essentially that he was Italian. That's what they do. She said, no, they don't do that in her Italian family. They don't go up and suddenly grab somebody's face of a stranger, and kiss them without asking. They do kiss members of their family when they greet each other, aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters. But no, they don't just grab the face of a stranger and kiss them. It's just not the Italian tradition. But let's assume only for purposes of discussion, Eric, that is cultural, that's what he does. You know, that's what's called male privilege, frankly. And that, put that up against the law, against sexual harassment. No, it doesn't survive.
They say ignorance of the law is not a defense. Gloria, one last question. He is now saying, look, I learned my lesson today. Today he says he learned his lesson. Going forward, it won't happen again. Is that a fair defense? Is that an argument that could stand up, let's say, in a court?
You mean he needed to do this to learn his lesson? He needed to have the Attorney General's report in order to learn his lesson? He could have learned it from the class that he and I both took on Zoom, probably on sexual harassment, if he hadn't learned it before. You know, just because he's always done it that way, or whatever it is he's done, doesn't mean he can continue to do it that way, unless and until he's caught. There are consequences for sexual harassment. He's now finding out what some of those consequences are. He probably knew them before, but maybe he didn't think they applied to him. He now understands. He is the role model for all state employees. He is the employer of all state employees in New York. He needed to do better. He failed the test of doing better. Now he's got to face the consequences.
Gloria Allred, always good to have you on. Appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Eric.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.